you, man.
Oh, man.
Nasty, man.
You're sick,
Who
man.
farted, man? Alright, let's don't worry about this, man. What we gonna do this weekend? We go camping? We gonna take our ladies or what, man?
Nah, man, we're gonna go by ourselves. You know,
Oh,
like,
man,
Dun
you're
City.
ignorant.
What?
You're afflicted playing stuff.
What?
Did you hear it?
Or what?
Oh, man, it sounded like a rattler.
Snake?
I'm not lying. I heard three people got killed. Rattler 2 years ago. I ain't lying. I ain't lying, man.
3 people got killed.
I ain't lying about
By
2
a
years
rattler.
ago.
A snake?
Just a
rattler
rattler.
snake?
That's all they know they heard was just a rattler.
A rattler.
3
I guess,
people got
I guess
killed.
when babies run around with a little
Man, this
rattler.
ain't funny. They could get killed, man. Man, it ain't funny. What if we get killed
No,
this
we
weekend, man?
did.
Oh, don't worry about it, man. I
Man,
had
we might.
I had my
Yeah,
own
kill my
man,
complexion.
my own man, Smith and Wesson.
Oh. Who farted? Oh, man.
Man, you fart
You're
again?
sick, man.
God, you nasty man.
You don't know, though, we would invite...
I can't help it.
We ought to invite Jeffrey to go camping with us, man. I think it'd be fun.
Oh, man, he's a dork, man.
Jeffrey, no.
Come on, let's go and go get our
he's
stuff.
a-
Come on,
he's a
he ain't that bad.
Alright, we'll invite him. I got the come. He doesn't know how to do it. I don't want to come.
Don't please, dummy.
Let's go. Man, it's too bad Jeffrey couldn't come tonight, you know?
He's supposed to give our women a ride, man. He probably took them out.
He probably did. Ever since we
don't
put that little chicken on him.
That was the funniest
chicken.
trick I ever
We
seen,
killed
man.
him, that chicken, man.
Man,
He got it, man.
He actually...
Wait a minute. Did you hear it? I told you I wasn't kidding.
Oh, man, that joke's getting old, man.
No.
man.
I don't
Go
think it
on.
was.
Quiet, man.
That joke's
I'll
old,
tell you what, man, if it comes out and somebody comes up here, don't you expect no help from me, because I'm out of here. I'm gone. You watch, I'm going to run
Ain't
first
nobody
little thing
here.
I heard.
Just don't worry about
Man,
it.
look.
Well, I bet it's Jeffrey.
We're gonna have look. Shut up,
Jeffrey
man.
wouldn't
We're
come.
gonna
Man,
have
if he does,
we're gonna
I'm
go.
going to kill him.
We're gonna go have a good weekend. You know, it would be by ourselves, man. Only about we ain't had no women, man.
That's
We'll
all right.
kill Jeffrey, man.
Maybe we can find chicken somewhere.
We ain't got nothing to start no campfire with. Nothing. Ain't got no money.
Live off nature, man, you know.
What? I heard it again.
I'll bet this Jeffrey for real.
If it is,
Jeffrey!
I'll tell you what though, we
we ought to go get some firewood.
I thought, wait,
Yeah,
wait,
okay.
wait.
We'll
What was
go-
that? What was that? Listen.
Oh, it's your imagination.
All right, your
man.
imagination.
You got the same
We're
old jokes as
We're
he
going to go get
does,
some
man.
firewood, all right?
Firewood.
We'll be
Yeah.
back in a
All
minute.
Be back in a little
We'll
while.
have a good time. I think we'll get in here and just...
We know what you're gonna be
I'm
doing.
gonna fix the bed, I think.
Come on.
You ready to go
Okay.
bed? Or y'all have fun now?
Hey, man.
Eee, somebody fart. Man, I ain't cooking no supper. Shit. What was that? What is it?
What are you doing here?
Where's Carl at, man?
I don't know. He's supposed to be cooking supper, man.
Come
Where's
on,
he
Carl.
at?
Where you at?
Carl. Man.
We
He's
out
gonna
there
be
looking
this.
for firewood.
Man, look at his hat.
Bet it's
Come
a
on
rattle.
out, man.
I bet it's a
Oh,
rattle.
get off that rattle.
I'm telling you, I
story.
bet it's a rattle.
Where are you at, man?
Man, this is really getting spooky. I bet he's dead.
He ain't dead,
He's
man.
dead, man. Did you hear it? I heard it again, man. We're going to have to get out of here. Man, I'm getting scared.
I am too, man, but I ain't leaving. I'm having a good weekend this weekend.
How are we going to have a good weekend? Two of our friends is dead. Huh?
Man, just shut up. Don't think about it.
Man, what are we going to do?
I don't know, man.
I think we should just go to bed. Or go home or something.
I'll come up here for a good weekend, man. I ain't
We
leaving.
can't have a good weekend now. It's done spooked, man.
We got to find Carl, man. That's all there is.
Well, come on. Let's go look for him.
Find him.
What? I heard it. It's him. No, it is. Come on. Let's go look for him.
Carl.
Hey, Carl.
Hey, man, you go stay here.
Yeah, man, I ain't going back out there. man. Cut.
Hey man, you gonna stay here?
Yeah, I ain't going back out there.
Well, I'm gonna find Carl, man. He's out there somewhere.
All right,
He's our friend,
I'll
man.
see you in a little while.
Alright, man, I'm gonna find him. Carl!